No one expects their life to change in a quiet hospital hallway. And no one expects kindness to come from the place they least notice. But one late evening, a billionaire would witness a moment so pure, so unexpected, that it would shake everything he believed about power, money, and the human heart. What he saw wasn't on a stage or in a boardroom. It was a simple dance. And it would change lives forever. Before we begin, if you love real stories that touch the heart and restore faith in humanity, please subscribe, like this video, and share your thoughts in the comments. This is True Story Tales, where kindness always finds its way home. The story begins in Chicago, inside a private rehabilitation hospital overlooking Lake Michigan. The building was modern, spotless, and quiet, the kind of place where every footstep echoed. This hospital was owned by Jonathan Reed, a self-made billionaire known across America as a ruthless businessman with a brilliant mind and a guarded heart. Jonathan Reed had everything money could buy: private jets, luxury homes, and influence that reached far beyond Wall Street. But none of it mattered anymore. His 10-year-old daughter, Emily, had been paralyzed from the waist down after a tragic car accident 6 months earlier. Emily had once been full of life. She loved music. She loved to dance. Ballet shoes still sat untouched in her bedroom closet at home. Since the accident, she barely spoke. Doctors worked on her body, but her spirit seemed locked away somewhere Jonathan couldn't reach. Jonathan visited the hospital every night after work. He never missed a day. Still, he felt helpless. No deal he closed, no donation he made, could bring his daughter back to the way she was. One evening, Jonathan stayed later than usual. A board meeting had run long, and his mind was heavy. As he walked down the dimly lit hallway toward Emily's room, he heard something unexpected. Music. Soft, gentle music was playing from a small portable speaker. And then, laughter. Jonathan stopped. Slowly, he stepped closer, staying hidden near the corner. What he saw made him freeze. Inside the physical therapy room, a man in a janitor's uniform was holding Emily's hands. The man was black, probably in his late 40s, with kind eyes and a warm smile. Emily was seated in her wheelchair, but her arms were raised, moving gently to the rhythm of the music. The janitor was dancing. Not in a silly way. Not to entertain. He was moving slowly, carefully, guiding Emily's hands as if they were floating. He spun himself softly, then leaned down to her level, smiling, encouraging her. And Emily was laughing. Jonathan hadn't heard that sound in months. The janitor whispered something Jonathan couldn't hear. Emily tried to move her shoulders. Her fingers trembled as she followed his lead. The joy on her face was real. Alive. Jonathan felt his throat tighten. Tears burned his eyes. He watched as the janitor adjusted Emily's wheelchair, then continued the dance, turning the therapy room into something magical. There was no pity in his eyes. Only respect. Only kindness. After the music stopped, the janitor knelt beside Emily and said, "You did great today, superstar. Same time tomorrow?" Emily nodded eagerly. That was when Jonathan stepped into the room. The janitor turned pale when he saw him. Everyone knew Jonathan Reed. He was the owner. The boss of bosses. I'm sorry, sir," the janitor said quickly. "I know I'm not supposed to." Jonathan raised his hand gently. "What's your name?" he asked. "Marcus," the man replied, voice shaking. Jonathan looked at Emily. She was smiling wider than he'd seen since the accident. "How long have you been doing this?" Jonathan asked. Marcus swallowed. "A few weeks, sir. I clean this floor every night." She always looked so lonely. "My daughter used to love dancing before she passed away. I just thought it might help." Jonathan's heart broke open. "You didn't ask for permission," Jonathan said quietly. Marcus nodded. "I know. If you want to fire me, I understand. I just didn't want her to feel invisible." The room went silent. Then Jonathan did something no one expected. He sat down. Right there. On the therapy room floor. Tears streamed down his face as he looked at Marcus. "You didn't just help her," he said. "You gave me my daughter back." Jonathan learned that Marcus worked 2 jobs. He had lost his wife to cancer and his daughter to a rare illness years earlier. Despite everything, he still showed up every night with kindness in his heart. The next day, the hospital staff was called into a meeting. Rumors spread fast. People assumed Marcus had been fired. Instead, Jonathan stood at the front of the room and told the story. He announced that Marcus was being promoted not to management, but to something new. A newly funded hospital program focused on emotional healing through music and movement. Marcus would lead it. Jonathan also revealed something else. He was donating $50 million to expand pediatric rehabilitation services nationwide, all in his daughter's name. But he didn't stop there. Jonathan invited Marcus and his family to dinner that night. Over a simple meal, Jonathan learned more about the man who reminded him what being human meant. Weeks turned into months. Emily began improving not just emotionally, but physically. Doctors were stunned. She started regaining limited movement in her legs. Therapy became something she looked forward to. Marcus danced with her every session. One afternoon, during a hospital fundraiser, Emily surprised everyone. With Marcus beside her, she stood up. Just for a moment. The room erupted in applause. Jonathan covered his mouth, overwhelmed. News outlets picked up the story. Headlines spread across the country. But Jonathan refused to let Marcus be turned into a symbol without dignity. "He's not a miracle worker," Jonathan told reporters. "He's just kind." Marcus remained humble. "I didn't change her," he said. "Love did." Years later, Emily would walk again. Not perfectly. But proudly. Jonathan changed too. He stepped back from ruthless business practices and began investing in people, not just profits. He often said that the most valuable thing he ever owned wasn't a company, it was a moment in a hallway. A moment where a janitor chose kindness over fear. And that choice changed everything. In a world obsessed with titles and wealth, this story reminds us of a simple truth: kindness doesn't need permission. It doesn't need money. It only needs a heart willing to see another human being. You never know who's watching. You never know who needs your kindness. And sometimes, the smallest act of love becomes the biggest miracle of all. So as you go about your day, remember this story. Be kind. Dance when you can. And never underestimate the power of a simple, human moment. Because kindness doesn't just change lives. It saves them.